Alright, I'm Meet the Moon, and as the title reads, this is how to make every single calibrated skulk frequency using only redstone. So you don't need a player here to do this. You don't need to do it manually. I mean, you can. For some it's super easy. You just have to throw an egg. But for others, it's not. Before that though, let us review calibrated skulk basics. So these guys have two main properties, amplitude and frequency. So frequency is what you get if you stick a comparator to the side of them. It tells you what kind of sound you're making. So if I place a block that isn't wool, or if I break one, it gives me a different signal strength from if I throw an egg or if I kill this guy. Amplitude just gives you feedback on how far away the sound is. See, the farther I get away from the thing, the weaker the signal strength is, and then the closer I get, the stronger it is. But that being the strongest when you're right on top of it. Now if you wanted to listen to just one specific type of sound, you need to power that side of it. The best way really is to just use a book with 15 pages for the corresponding signal strengths, and it won't listen to any sound except 15. Yeah, so we've got this unfortunate fellow here. There we go. Alright, now let's just run through it. So most of these can be automatically shut off or turned on with a piston. To do that though, you have to muffle the piston or else the sensors will listen to it. Alternatively, you can just use the lectern thing. For some of these I didn't silence them with lecterns because it wasn't necessary. For others I did because the things make two different sounds, and if you only want that specific signal strength, is best. It's good practice to just muffle it. Alright, so the first one is not that bad. We need a bat, and it has to be a bat. It can't be a bee or a chicken or anything. Bats are the only mobs that are constantly moving. So what we do here, we just have an inverter. You press the button, it pulls that block away, and as you can see, signal strength of 1, because 1 is player or mob movements in any medium, water, air, or land. Just so happens that the bat is always moving, so if we just get rid of that, there you go. Alright, number 2. So this one, there's two ways to do it. This one is more compact, and then this one is infinite. So over here, you just fill this guy with snowballs or arrows, and then you put an air block in between that and the glass block, so that when you hit this, the snowball will impact the glass block, triggering a signal strength of 2. So that's whenever something lands on an object. You could also drop items to do this, but yeah, that's a lot harder. I mean, you could just get a dropper and drop cobblestone onto any block that isn't wool, but like I said, this is, you know, more compact and more lag friendly since you wouldn't have that many drops. Alright, now if you don't want to waste snowballs or arrows, you can just set up this. So this is an old school AFK timer thing that we would use in the old servers that would time you out if you didn't move. You just put a dog in there and make some water flow, and then the movement, the dog jumping up and down, is going to trigger the skulk sensor, giving you a strength of 2. So this one you don't have to reload or anything, fill with eggs or snowballs. You would have to build a piston though to muffle it, or you could just do it by hand like I did now, but then that kind of defeats the purpose of doing it with redstone. Alright, so number 3. this one I had to configure with the lectern because we're just shooting something in the air. And when it lands, it would give a signal strength of 2. Thankfully, we have muted it to 3. So there it is. Alright, number 4. So this one was a little hard to get. It's for specific mob noises, so whenever a ravager roars or a wolf shakes. So we had to muffle this because, well, what we're doing here is we're getting the wolf wet so that when it shakes itself off, it gives us that frequency of 4. If you don't mute it or set it to 4, it would also momentarily give you a signal strength of 2 because the wolf would be moving in the water, and you don't want that. Right, so get rid of this guy. Okay, so you have to put on armor. We can simulate that with the armor stand. 5. And that's it. That's 4 times. Can't really do much else. I mean, yeah, there could be a complex way. There is a way that you could get more. You just swap these out every so often. Maybe drop this down and replace it with a fresh one. Keep feeding it armor from a mob grinder or something. But that'd be too complicated for this video, so we're just gonna leave that out. Alright, so number 6, this one is also a bit difficult to repeat. So this is whenever you interact with a mob. Whenever you get on a mob like a horse, and when you get off one, it gives you a signal strength, a frequency of 6. Now, pistons can't get on top of animals or anything like that, so this is the best thing we've got. Shearing a sheep. Of course, you only can do that once every so often, so I would try not to use this frequency, or maybe just have a bunch of sheep. Alright, so signal strength of 7. This is whenever a mob takes damage. So you could just hit a mob, but of course that didn't do anything because the wool blocked it out. But we can also just use eggs and chickens, and that gives us a signal strength of 7. I mean, most of us should have infinite egg farms, so it's not that hard to do. Now if you don't get it like that time, you just need to extend the duration of this clock, because, well, this is just an example. So you can feed it directly from your chicken farm or set up another clock. I mean, it's really chance based if you get a chicken or not from that, so I'd keep that in mind. Alright, so number 8. So this is triggered whenever you eat something. Now of course you don't, if you're making telegraph poles or something, you can't go to each one to eat something. So what we can do is feed a fox, wait about 30 seconds, and then when he eats that thing, here I'm using chicken, when he eats it, it'll give us a signal strength of 8. Alright. Takes about 30 seconds. Yeah, we just gotta wait on him to do his thing. There he goes. There it is, 8. And yep, it's muted to only 8. Alright, so this one, if you didn't have to do this with redstone, you could simply use the button. But since we have to use redstone, you can just pretend this button is your input to whatever machine. So it triggers whenever items deactivate, whenever redstone stuff deactivates, like that. So that's 9. And then 10 is the opposite, it's whenever things activate. Alright, now 11. So this is whenever blocks change state. So we're using our good friend the composter here. We're using compostable stuff. This is stuff I would get from my iron farm. Just hit the button, and there it is. It changes states because the bone meal level is going up. And just make sure you don't forget the hoppers underneath so it doesn't get clogged up. Alright, 12 is whenever you, let's see, remove blocks. So this counts as a block to sculk sensors. It's probably, it's the only block dispensers can place. So 12 is when you remove blocks. So the observers, of course, are just, they detect the button change so that it activates twice. Alright, now this one's the opposite. It's whenever blocks are placed, and again, we're using powdered snow for this. It's the only block we can place with redstone. Yeah. Alright, this one took a bit to figure out. We're gonna have to get out of peaceful for this. We need Enderman. We name it. Gotta get him in there somehow. Okay, now he's in here. Alright, and now that he's in here, we shoot him. Yeah, it's that easy. Shoot the Enderman. He tries to teleport, but he's stuck in the boat. Technically, he is teleporting, I guess, just to the exact same spot. Seconds after, milliseconds after the arrow passes through. But yeah, that's enough. You could use a shulker, but those are a bit harder. Yeah, Enderman is easy to get. And yeah, that's signal strength 14. Alright, now 15, there's two options. One of them is a lot cheaper than the others. So you could use explosions, so maybe you could trap a creeper and explode it, or use TNT, but that's a lot more expensive, so you can just use eggs. You get a mob, and whenever it dies, 15. Now I didn't do anything special for this one, because you can just duplicate this. It's the exact same machine, just that this one checks for mobs getting damaged, and this one checks for when they die. And since they're baby chickens, there's no mess. You don't have any items to clean up after. But yeah, that's it. That's every single sculk frequency using only redstone. To recap, hardest ones to use are probably number 5 and number 6, just because there's a bit of a delay for each one of the sounds. I mean, for this one you need an armor stand, and you only do it 4 times. This one you need to shear a sheep. So yeah, but all the other ones, oh, and I guess this one's a little slow, but at least, you know, as long as you have chicken, you can still do it if you're fine with a 30-second delay. But yeah, that's it. So for these 3, I'm going to make a better sound storage system so that you can just access that instead of having to make the sounds directly. But yeah, I'll post that video later.